Welcome to Center Heist Productions. It is September 30th, 2024. Please hit the likes down in the right hand corner and subscribe, share the video, and thank you to those who are following. Please, it's very important that you don't leave here without hitting the likes and subscribing, trying to grow this channel as we're building a channel that is got integrity and tends to stick to the facts of the scenarios in front of us on the Habs. And this is a special edition episode I'm doing, which I promised on my last episode. As it states above, this is more about responses and replies that came from Gary Bettman in the last few weeks, basically through TSN, ESPN, probably many more reporters than just that. Articles were written in reply when recently I think Bettman was approached. I think it came after some type of engagement with some managers in the league. So, anywho, we're going to get right down to it. This is about the NHL and expansion out of his own mouth and daily. It's kind of basically the NHL and where the NHL has gone from in its history and what is pretty sad and pretty scary about the whole situation. So, what we've seen, and I think everybody in the hockey world, especially in Canada, where the sport came from, and it was our league at one time. And the sad part of this is, and we handed it over, and the worst thing it ever could have done is gotten into Gary Bettman's hands. Now, a lot of people will totally disagree. That is your opinion, and I will tell you why I disagree. Being a longtime fan since I was born, basically 2 years old in diapers, I've been following this game. And since, all my years of watching the Habs and hockey, the one thing I could say, and I think, we got to, I just looked it up and getting the information. We had 21 teams in 1979. And, you still got your 16 teams. The top 16 teams would make the playoffs. I like the format. And I didn't even mind it when it went into, Adam's divisions, Patrick's divisions. But it's such a mess now with what Bettman has done at putting teams in. It's really not well thought out the way these divisions are divided at this moment in time. I think they had a much better structure of the divisions, less teams, and I think we got carried away with the amount of hockey teams we have. And what, I know, okay, America has tons more, a lot more money than Canada does overall, I suppose, is the storyline. Is, if that be the case, but the true, I'm sorry to say this, but, the biggest fans came from Canada. And it being our league and our sport, we should have had better control over it. And when we get down to the nitty gritty of it and you hear the responses, and I was really kind of floored when I seeing what he is thinking of in the back of his head that he let out, whether he let it out through himself or daily. I think it was from him to a reporter in TSN, just letting the report out that in his thoughts at the moment is Houston. And how could it be Atlanta? Actually, they had Atlanta named first. Atlanta, Houston, and again Phoenix. Phoenix just went through. So here's my problem with all of this, and I don't like what my point I'm driving at is, what is his chip on his shoulder with the Canadian market? We do deserve to balance this league out appropriately, and I honestly think we got to reverse it. I honestly do. I much more preferred it when we were at the 21 team. I could live with 21 teams. Now, the 16 team, original six, that's even before my time. I understood it, but that should be respected. We've seen in, previous years, since the 90s and stuff, that the Canadian market has not been respected. We almost lost the Montreal Canadiens at one point there, that they were losing so much money due to the tax system, because that organization, the organization we cheer for, is taxed more than the entire league put together. That's a fact. And for this league, and I know we had a prime minister at once that wanted to do something about it and catch them a tax break. But because, and I'm sorry to say this, but it's just too bad, so sad, and I don't care if the province likes it. The Quebec provincial government wouldn't go for it. They like to have their cake and eat it too, and have a little say influencing the sport. They need to keep their nose out of hockey then, because if you want your team to be successful, you need to bring down the tax system. I got no problem. I understand the philosophy of taxing it because it's a business. That's fine and dandy. But you see how harshly it is taxed. And if they're going to compete in the NHL, something's got to give. But so anyway, that's a whole nother can of worms. The provincial government in there, so they wouldn't even go by it. And when Chrétien was prime minister, he had to just let that idea slip because provincial government there went berserk. And to me, I'm just blown away that they did. Just what, you can't cut their tax in half to save your franchise, for your historic franchise for your province? Baffles the mind. Anyhow, so when knowing that that's not going to work and it's a hockey business, no matter how it looks at, when the NHL grew, there needed to come a point. We lost Canadian teams like the Nordiques at one point in time. We lost the Jets for a minute, and they came back. And please, somebody tell me how the heck do they not go back to their original logo? Is beyond me, because this replacement logo that they have since they come back, it looks totally. If you look at some military hockey leagues in Canada, it totally looks like an Air Force League team. It's just a joke. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible logo. Go back to the original Jets logo. But anyway, we should never have to lose a team in Canada when the game was built here. So with Bettman's response is that he's saying, "Oh, nothing yet. Will be expanded, but in the thoughts when it happens." He's pushing for Atlanta. He's pushing for Houston and Phoenix. Now, two of those three markets failed. Am I missing something? Atlanta. How many teams did you have? You would get a third shot when other teams that cities, you don't deserve another team, and it shouldn't even be on the table. So Bettman, I have no use for this guy. He's a bonehead, a pinhead, and I don't care. There's people even close to me that probably like the guy. I despise him, and I've despised him since he got his hands on the NHL. And it's just been this one-sided thing. And yes, he's expanded and it's working. He's good with numbers, I suppose, somewhat. Although he doesn't include his failures like Phoenix and Arizona, and how many times Atlanta has failed in this, and then wants to bring him back. There should have been a proper balance. Hamilton's been waiting for a hockey team for a long time now. I know there's a beef there with, a lot of people from Toronto will say it wouldn't work. I don't know about that. There's so many damn teams in the American side of things. I think we got to accept where we can get a team in the Canadian market. And I actually think it could survive because there's such a high and a good, strong fan base. So for me, I'd love to see that. Now, I have, I understand the not giving the although the Nordiques got a bigger argument than Atlanta. They've only had one shot crack at it and blew it. But for Arizona and Phoenix and Atlanta, they've blown it over and over. So to me, you had better competition when you had lesser teams. You had a better quality of hockey because you more so got closer, higher um, players in evaluation, in talent. I mean, the more you add teams, the more you water out the talent level. And that's what's happening. I mean, 32 teams, it's just ridiculous. I'd like to see it go back. I remember growing up, and I'm fairly sure growing when I was younger, I can remember hockey ending, towards the end of May. And I'd rather see that. I think it's ridiculous that it goes into June. I don't care how big of a hockey fan you are. We got to get realistic. It's the same as baseball. It's far too long. Start cutting down. The NFL now. There's a league that's got their league is so much shorter their season compared to any other league, and yet they're saying it's a lot of football due to injury wise. Well, we get a lot of injuries in hockey too. And I really would like to see the capacity back at that level. I know it's a pipe dream from my end of it. We had better quality hockey, a little more balance, and a better chance for Canadian teams to actually win a Stanley Cup. I could live with that balance when we were at 21, and it was still we were still well outnumbered in the Canadian market. But to go and go up to 32, and you're talking more teams, and we're going to be stuck with what, our six or seven teams. That's ridiculous. Gary Bettman, to me, has been a nightmare for the NHL, for especially the Canadian market. He's got a chip on his shoulder with the Canadian market, and it's BS. And then he was asked about to balance it out, which entirely would make sense. And he just blew it off, threw it out the window, knowing that there's teams in this. And if you wanted this team, the NHL would be way more interesting if each team had the same money level so that they can build their teams. Then you find out who a true management team, best management. You're not finding out that in this league. You're finding out only the teams that have money that's because they're not taxed. So they got a bundle of money and where players want to go, but you could balance it out so everybody has the same amount of money to work with. Then you find out who's actually the best administration and best management development team because then they can compete, at least compete equally on that side of the scope. So this crap of where we stand, and I love hockey, but this is my irk, and I just wanted to bring it up because it was just in recent weeks that it was brought out to the forefront between TSN, I believe, and Sportsnet, and I'm sure there were other reporters, and it was disgusting. It was just like, how dare you? You've got he was like, you know, Canadian market, no, 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 but didn't want to hear about cost sharing. To me, that's BS. It would make way much more sense to have your teams have the exact amount of funding. The way the league has made so much money, I give him credit there. He's made this NHL work, making big money, and that's why the players, you'll never see much happen because the players will support him. Because when this all transpired, it was also around the same time as Wayne Gretzky came in the league, and then we've seen contracts go through the roof. So it was that combination. But I'll tell you now, I much preferred John Ziegler. Uh, Eagleson, if he wouldn't have been such a crook, um, was even a better time frame. It's just that he was a crook. Now, Bettman's a smarter businessman, but he's got the biggest chip on his shoulder with the Canadian market. And it's totally unfair. And it's time, really, if we wanted a better game in our NHL, the fans should start pushing, along with the owners, to balance this league out. And get this, a team fails once in an expansion, you don't get a second shot. Period. Period. Not different strokes for different folks because it's the American market. 3 shots for Atlanta, that's a load of crop. And Pinhead Bettman knows it. He knows it. But that's how crooked he is. And I'll call him out for what he is. And I'm sorry, I really don't give a damn who likes him. I don't. I like straight up fairness, and I don't like slimy individuals who can't do something straight above board, not even respect that this game was built here, and respect that we should balance out the market more, and that there are, you gotten carried away with the amount of teams there are, but bad enough, balance it out so that the Canadian market has a chance. It's bad enough we're outnumbered in teams in Canada. You don't only do that, but then the tax system, we can't compete because we're paying through the roof. And especially the Canadians are the worst team their tax structure is the worst in the market. They pay more than everybody combined. Then you get the Leafs who feel it next. Now, for some reason, the Leafs are doing quite well with their system. Maybe it's the new administration, but other than that, a lot of the Western teams suffer a bit because even at their level, of taxation because it's so much more than the American market. They can't compete at that level. That's why you got weaker teams here in Canada. We almost get stuck with taking over leftovers. Now, Toronto's in a different place, only because Toronto was in rebuild mode, and then they've got good sponsorship that has come forward on their behalf on businesses. So they're probably in the best shape they've ever been in a long time. Toronto's market, at least after the Ballard years. So with that being said, can we have some even keel competition in this league? And reasoning with Gary Bettman, he's got to go. For me, it's give this market, give this leadership back to the Canadian uh, market because it was our market. Why are we playing in June? This is players are That's why players are getting injured so much more too. Their seasons are so long. It's bad enough that they go into May when they used to, but they have them going into June. This is ridiculous. No wonder the body breaks down on them. They don't get enough time to rest and heal the body. Let's make some sense and make it a better game for everybody. And you get a better quality of hockey players if you would, or to actually reverse this a little bit and bring the team. There was no problem with this league being at 21 teams. It made sense. And the structure was even better where one playing 16. It just made it, hey, if you earned first, you got that opportunity to play a 16th team. Now, I could still live to make it, you know, a little more exciting. They thought they would bring in the Adams Norris Patrick's division and Campbell's and all of that jazz and the Norris division. That was doable as well. Mind you, I still preferred the way it was structured in the 70s. But to this Atlantic division, really, you almost got a powerhouse division, and it's almost impossible for the teams if they end up in trouble to ever to rebuild it. It's ridiculous. Spread the teams out and balance the level of the divisions. I don't care about this flight crap because really, bottom dollar, you can balance. If everybody's got to travel, it balances out in the end. And back in the day, they played each other 4 times when they were at 21 teams. That made sense. This schedule, the way this league is run, is actually ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. And let's talk about bring in the Lonnie situation. Injuries like that, 6 or more exhibition games, and you're putting star players at risk. Look how many have just gone down in this. Just in this preseason, it's ridiculous. There's no need for more than 3 games, and I even question should the star players be even playing in them because back in the day, a lot of them would sit out a lot of star players a lot of times. So to me, I think there's a whole lot of problems with our NHL. Um, and we still haven't heard any new news on the Lonnie and Reinbacker injuries. We know Montreal is going to be in a peculiar situation. I don't know what they're going to do. They're either going to, if this is long term, we got to find that out first. But if this is long term, are you going to make a trade because you now only got a top 4? You don't have a second line, a top, an actual NHL because we didn't have a complete second line. We had a top 5, top 5 players. We almost had a second line. Newhook, sorry, I'm not going to sit there and just because we're stuck with a third line or being stuck with 2 second liners, no, that doesn't make it a second line. Now, it would have been a much improvement and we were looking forward to it, but that does not make an actual second line. So Montreal still needed one more winger. But now that this devastation of Lane, we're down to back to line 3s and 4s running, and that's scary. So we're going to have to make a decision there. Our management is going to have to make a decision. Do you go make a couple of trades and go and get yourself an actual top 6 player again and take the load off some of those defensemen that you're going to have to move, a couple of the forwards too that aren't going to fit in this team down in the AHL, the Farrells, those type of guys, move them on and make a deal, even if you got to put picks in there. But I don't mind seeing us get one more year of a good pick because we're not totally done the rebuild. We're most of the way there, but it wouldn't hurt to get another good pick. But anyway, back to that. I'm just so sick of Gary Bettman and his bonehead and his hatred towards the Canadian market. Tell me what you think. I just despise the way this guy operates. He's not a nice human being in that regard. It's very selfish, and he's all money oriented. He's making good money. Don't kid yourself. So the players are going to love him because he's what made their contracts where they are with the placement of how the NHL has built itself. But we need to start getting realistic. The Canadian market needs help, and it should be balanced out. Then you would get fair hockey at least, where teams could compete evenly. No wonder the American markets are winning all the time. There's 20, how many? 20, what, about 27 teams or 26 teams that are American to our 6 or 7? Is that really? Yeah, that's a fair balance, isn't it? And then you don't even have the decency. We could probably, at 21, that's why I said it was healthier. We had a shot. If you would at least do the cost sharing things, teams that don't have any taxes, so that everybody's paying the same amount and that tax is spread around so that it's cost sharing and everybody gets paid, at least the Canadian teams then would be able to compete. But the structure it's not a pretty structure. And to hear those just teams shoot it down, the cost sharing thing immediately, and then the expansion thing, doesn't want to hear about the Canadian market. Atlanta, who failed, and this would be a third time. That shouldn't be happening. Phoenix, Arizona, twice now. And they kind of been moved all around in there. They shouldn't have another crack at it. Houston, okay, I can live with that. I don't like where it's located, but the other two, and it's about time the Canadian market starts to get a crack at it. So that's my beef. I just wanted to put that beef out there. It was just because there were articles written on this in the last few weeks, and I just don't like I don't like the way Bettman has treated Canada. I don't like the way Bettman has treated the Canadian market. Um, I don't like the way he's built this team up so that it's so lopsided that it's all American based, because all he can think of is money. We need a new direction in this league, and either the fans and maybe the managers start to put their foot down and say, we got to do this so that it balances out, because then we can get our Canadian teams winning a bit more. So tell me what you think, and we'll go from there. And we're still waiting on I'll be doing an episode, I'm sure, whether it be when the Lonnie update and Reinbacher update comes up. We're all crossing our fingers, knocking on wood, and praying that it's not as bad as we think it is, because it looked bad. Especially the Lonnie one looked extremely bad. But we still should be worried about Reinbacher too, being our fifth round draft, our number 5 in the first round. That it's kind of, we got to be concerned. And whether it's, I think we're in a dilemma. And I think there's only one guy out of the kids that has a shot in the forward group, and that's Oliver Catton. And I wouldn't mind seeing him get a crack at it, but he's not going to replace a guaranteed top 6 player like Lonnie, who's a goal scorer. That's a given. You're still going to take a blow. So Montreal's got big decisions to make, because I know when the summer comes, they're going to have to turn the corner and now start putting bigger pieces on the ice. So that being said, I just wanted to go down that. Tell me what you think. It was a topic that's been driving me nuts for quite some time, and I'm sorry. Gary Bettman gets the best bonehead award from me. That's how I look at him. I'm not crazy about the man's character whatsoever and what he's done to the Canadian market. So thank you. Hit the likes, shares, subscribe. Tell me what you think. Be civil. No nastiness in the comments section. Just tell me what your opinion is. I just wanted to run that off because I think it's something sometimes, especially the younger generation doesn't. I don't know if they know the history well enough, and they can see. But when you get fans that have been around a long time, we know the difference of how the NHL ran much better. It was a much better competition in the 70s, 80s. I think we just went too far with expansion, and I'd like to see hockey back to being over May the latest and give these guys a longer break. Better on their body, better for the fans too. Everybody wants to take a break. You need a break from the sport, and hockey and baseball and basketball are far too long. So tell me what you think. You've seen it here. Remember, you've seen it here at Center Heist Productions. And well, until we see the next game, which I'm concerned about that game against Ottawa, I just hope that there's no more injuries to come our way. And still waiting on, to see the results on Lonnie and Reinbacker. But tell me what you think. Thank you for joining me. Share the video. Hit the likes. Don't forget to hit the likes and subscribe. God bless. We'll catch you in the next episode. Go Habs, go.